Burgess and Bolton's weekly wrap-up.
Hello, Ben.
Hello, Jeremy.
Happy Friday.
Happy Friday.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to this week's edition of Burgess and Bolton's weekly wrap-up, where we look at everything to do with the London market, change, technology, and this week we have a special guest interview. Our friend and colleague in the market, John Muir, joined us this week, and we will play out the first part of an interview we had with John, where he's talking about his experiences in the London market, especially around change and modernisation. So it's very timely, it's really interesting, and he gets into a whole lot of stuff, but that's later. Firstly, we have the news. I've got some news, actually. Some pretty poor news to kick us off this week, which is around the business interruption case. Again, yesterday I caught, by accident, actually, you and yours show on Radio 4, which is a consumer sort of show where they talk about things that happened in the industry, and they were focused on the BI claim story. I've actually just clipped a bit just to play because I found it quite shocking what they were talking about. So let's play the clip and then we'll come back and discuss what they said.
If the banks were the villains of the financial crisis back in 2008, insurance companies are the villains of the pandemic now. Insurance companies refused to pay out on policies they sold to cover business interruption. The regulator took them to the highest court in the land and won. That was more than 3 months ago. But this programme has learned that even now, less than a fifth of claims have been paid. 10,000 out of more than 50,000. Hiscox, the insurer with the highest number of claims, has resolved only 49 cases out of 12,000. Matt Davis owns a home electronics store in Eastbourne. He was closed during the lockdown because it was non-essential retail. Last week he decided he couldn't wait any longer for a payout from Hiscox.
To start with, if I'm honest, I wasn't completely aware that the business interruption was there, because the policies, the documents you get when you take out insurance, there's so much to read, there's so much there. I did go through and I found that the business interruption was there. So I was actually putting my claims in. It would have been in December and early January. The communication was almost non-existent, to be honest with you. They had a dedicated email line which you could send out your queries to once the claims were filed. And I just never got a response. So eventually I did call them. I spoke to a lady on the phone from Hiscox, and she was really nice, but she just told me that there was a huge backlog because of everything that had happened. So my business has sadly now had to go into liquidation.
Mike's off.
BBC Radio 4, if you missed it, they started off by saying if the criminals of the financial crisis in 2008 were the banks, then for Corona it's insurance. And it's pretty shocking because that is a serious program. It goes out to 3.5 million people a week, and for me it really plays into the narrative that insurance is a waste of time and it doesn't pay out. And we know, working in the industry, that isn't the case, but it really is gives a bad taste in the mouth when you hear that on the radio. And I think just hearing that customer there talk about, first of all, the documentation and the amount of paperwork he needed to go through to just find out whether he had the BI, and then the communications off the back of that once the claim had gone in, being so complex and non-existent, I think is again shocking. And I think from a PR point of view, I'm a Hiscox customer in my business. I don't have business interruption insurance, and my business wasn't interrupted, luckily. But at the very least, I'm going to be looking at the renewal date and thinking, well, I might get a quote somewhere else. So it does have implications beyond just this group of customers. And I was just taken aback when I heard that yesterday, and quite shocked. So I think, for us, we want to work in an industry and be proud of it. And this kind of stuff, really upsets me quite deep.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I was just, taking through a few of the points there that were, coming out. I mean, communications is clearly not happening, which just, I don't understand. Hiscox has always been a company that communicated well. And I don't want to just push this on Hiscox, but it is focusing on them now. It isn't, they did mention other insurers who were paying out, which was good. But the issue of just not communicating, that could have resolved quite a lot here. If the program had contacted people and they'd said, well, it's taking some time, but they are talking, and, they are letting me know, but they're not letting people know, which is what we hear a lot of with brokers saying, well, we need to be appraised of the situation so we can let the customers know. And I think the loss adjuster at the end was talking about that. So I think that's, disappointing. And I don't really understand why that's happening, but perhaps we all should learn from that, communication is key, even if there are technical or other issues, whatever they may be. I think wider, it's just not a good look. And Hiscox is a big brand. It's a well-known brand, so it will rub off on everybody. And I think, I reflect on this, that when, as a research business, polls go wrong, it's frustrating because you have to explain it. And I think it's, I feel really, really disappointed about Hiscox. It's a brand that was really strong. It's hugely invested in. And, I know people there, and I know it. And I rather like you, Jeremy, I just scratch my head a bit at this. It shouldn't have got to this. It shouldn't have come to this. A lot of, and I will say this here and now, I know from all the data we collect, a lot of insurers have done a good job on this, and yeah, it's a real shame.
It is. And I encourage everyone to get onto the BBC Four website and listen to that to that whole clip. It's about 12 minutes long. It's not a short piece that they've done on there, and yeah, it's well worth a listen because they have a couple of customers on there, and it's a good insight. Right, let's move things along. So on a lighter note, we had this amazing rebranding of Aberdeen, Standard Life Aberdeen, removing the vowels. Why on earth did they do that?
Well, look, it's also an anagram of brand, so that's a bit odd. I think just one of those that comes up every so often where the branding company, and for various reasons, which might have been good reasons, they've come up with this idea. I'm a fan of. I love it, and I just think it's great, and I think we should move to our own version, which I've done.
Well done. Oh yeah.
I think it's the future. It's how the kids do it. It's great.
Great, yeah.
We don't need vowels anymore. That's it.
Braggs and Bolt.
We're just supporting.
Yeah.
We're just supporting.
Good stuff. Right, I think also you've got not only news, Ben, but you've also got a tip for everybody.
Yeah, look, this is the Mumsnet moment, and this without doubt is the best piece of software I've come across. And why am I showing it here? Just simply because it's so good, and it's called Cortana. And if people have got it, I'm sure everybody's going to say now, "Oh yeah, we've been using that for years, Ben." But I checked with you, Jeremy, and you didn't know about it.
Nope.
So in this last 2 weeks, I started to get these emails. I must have turned this on by accident. And in my inbox, this is also because it's AI, and we talk a lot about AI in insurance, and I never actually see anything that massively impresses me, I have to say. But this is just amazing. It does the thing that I've always wanted, which it somehow sifts through all of my emails from the previous day, and it creates a set of reminders, and it sources each email and says, it gives you a bit of text as to what somebody said, could you do this and make sure you do that, or remind Jeremy that the show's tomorrow. So all these emails turn up every day, beautifully laid out, and you have a completed, done, or whatever on the top, so you can just tick through them. It is, I cannot recommend this highly enough. It's fan-bloody-tastic, and everybody should use it. In fact, just everybody who watches this show should use it, because it will give us the edge over every other person using computers. Brilliant. It's just brilliant. It's wonderful. Something like this in insurance would be good.
Yeah, that's it. I think when you get these bits of software that just work, and there's suddenly, I've got a similar one that looks after my calendar. So if I've got a lot of meetings around conferences and stuff, so people can schedule their slot in my calendar. It's pretty low tech, really. But then it'll give me, as you say, kind of a daily or a weekly. Yeah. This is your schedule of meetings that are coming up. And just to say, I've checked this, and it does pick up everything. So it's not just my colleagues; it's anybody who said anything in an email that sort of asked me to do something. And I'll admit now, that's one of my failings in my to-do list and my workflow, is that 3 days after, I think I'll wake up in the middle of the night thinking, oh God, I didn't reply to that person who asked me that, and you go back, and it's a real drag on your productivity. Yeah. So this is a game changer, absolute game changer. Good. There we go. Right. Let's move things on to our main item. So as I said at the top of the show, we have a interview with John Muir. He's Managing Director for Technical and Operational Practices at Willis Towers Watson. Been in the market ever since, I think, he left school, and we spent the first 10 minutes reminiscing about how he joined insurance and kind of his career up to date, and then how he's got involved in market modernization in the last sort of 10, 15 years, I think it was. We pick up the interview here where, Ben, you are asking him about his involvement in claims modernization. which he talks about, then goes on to talk about the speed of change or lack of it, and then commenting on the blueprint too. So cameras off, here's the interview, and away we go.
So claims became kind of you, and I mean just cutting a bit to the chase, because I think it's, you know, we could talk about our histories. We've all got Jeremy's got a slightly less long history, but we've all got long histories. But what are the kind of changes that you've seen, John? And you said it was a very challenging thing, and I'd have to agree that, you know, in this market, it's been quite slow, let's say, and we've both reflected on that. And perhaps it's my sense is it's all suddenly rather speeded up in the last couple of years. But what's your kind of sense of what the main things have been that have, you know, been the kind of key moments or milestones and things that have really moved things on?
So, if you don't mind me mixing it up between claims and placement, because obviously I've still got a lot of interest and involvement in placement and transformation around placement. But I would say that, you know, the market has changed considerably, but of course it would do. In my 46 years, when I started, we had telegrams to telex, to facsimile, to email, to digital. So there's all been that change. I'd say the market has always been slow, and I would argue that I myself, when I was a broker, was a slow adopter. I try to reflect back and think, why was I a slow adopter when I was a broker? I think it's a sort of, being a broker is a bit of a lifestyle career, and you don't want anybody impinging upon your lifestyle. It was only when I got involved in market modernization in 2005 and had a chance to reflect on I always remember when I was asked to go and do contract certainty, I'd never really heard of John Tyner or some of the expectations of the FSA, but I could kind of buy into we needed to end the culture of deal now, detail later. I just instantly went, yeah, that just sounds wrong. And we should actually let our clients know what they've bought exactly and who they bought it from within no more than 30 days from when they bought it. And the insurers should actually know what their signed line is and not have to wait months or whatever to know exactly what their signed line is. And from that point forward, I just suppose I could relate to a lot of the things that the market was trying to do, which, well, dare I say it, the practitioners were all slightly, as I was, with, well, it ain't broke, so what have we got to fix? And actually, you know, we have so much to fix, I think. And I don't believe in crying wolf and suggesting that the market's going to implode if we don't do X, Y, and Z. I don't sit worrying about Google or other people coming into, you know, I've been listening to that. When I started in insurance in 1975, I remember somebody saying to me when they'd heard that I'd gone to work for a broker, they said, you know, was I worried about disintermediation? Well, I didn't even know what disintermediation meant. But I said, you know, what does it mean? They said, well, you know, brokers are sort of middleman and, you know, like, what's the point? So I thought, you know, that's an interesting observation. And I just don't know enough about it. But anyhow, fast forward 26 years, oh, goodness gracious, clients the world over have never needed brokers more. And to me, all of these things where everybody sits there trying to talk about how the end of the world is nigh, I don't buy into that. What I do buy into is the London market has an extraordinary advantage in terms of its concentration of expertise, experience, and genuine commitment to insurance on the underwriting side, and on the broking side, and then across all the associations, there's this extraordinary proximity of a body of 50,000 people. There is nowhere else like it on the planet. It's unique. And I think we're missing a big trick. And I kind of buy into some of John Muir's vision in terms of the fact that couldn't we do a lot more in the London market? Should we just be a specialist stroke market of last resort stroke capacity type market, when actually I think we could do lots of things that compete with regionals, because we've got the underwriting savvy and the broking connections. So to me, we're missing a trick, and that to me is what we should be pushing as the ultimate vision is. I always look at it, and my background is international insurance, which is great, but I always laugh at how poor our penetration is of our domestic market. That just feels intuitively wrong.
Yeah. And so what you're saying there, John, is that actually the market, the kind of positioning of London in a way is, it should be really about the expertise and the people, and that perhaps even innovation, if we can use that terribly overused word. Is that right?
Yes. I think we could do so much more, and I don't think we try hard enough to expand our opportunity. And I think that's just a mistake on our part. I've traveled the world. I can tell you that the regional and domestic insurance carriers are not that clever. Don't ever sit there thinking how brilliant everybody else is, because in my experience, most of the rest of the world is sitting and looking at London and going how brilliant and clever London is. You look at the number of countries around the world that actually have actually copied virtually verbatim the contract certainty code of practice, which would just tell you our influence on global insurance. And that's very much, that's a London market thing, more than a domestic UK market thing, because that's where you've got the concentration of really specialized and clever thinkers who are trying to break the mold. I mean, it's always ironic. I look at what we're doing, and then I think about the future at Lloyd's and go, with all these advantages, why does it all feel so painfully slow? So my interest in claims is goes back to about 2008 when I was asked to head claims operations at Willis. And I really did it for organizational purposes. And I'm not a claims expert, but even I could see that there were some things that were just fundamentally wrong. ECF is just completely and utterly out of date. If it was really owned by any organization, or if you go to any broker and say, is your claims platform 30 years old? They'd all laugh, but actually the market's claims platform is. I know something's being done about it, but it just seems slow. It feels so wrong. I sit amongst the top claims people. Quite rightly, they're quite self-congratulatory. In fact, I think I remember once saying that the claims community was quite self-congratulatory at one of Jeremy's conferences. And I remember how badly that went down well. But they're quite rightly self-congratulatory, because the work that claims people do on big claims in the London market is a fantastic experience. The clients absolutely love it. It's far better than the experience they get from faceless people in the regional and domestic arena. And our ability to manage those claims and talk people through them is second to none. But the trouble is, all of those people are only really interested in claims which are in a sort of minimum of £1 million.
Yeah.
And I'm a champion of small business, because Willis is a major account broker. We don't have a lot of small clients, but believe you me, we have tons of small claims, and the speed and efficiency and brilliance with which small claims are managed in the subscription market is nothing short of shocking. It's just poor for words. Now, as luck would have it, many of us have got customers who just don't care. So if you said to them, oh dear, this claim's for £10,000 is being paid a bit late, they'd go, we don't care, it's £10,000. But unfortunately, we've also got customers for whom 10,000, I'm a customer of Willis. If I had a £10,000 claim, I'd want it to be paid really quickly.
Yeah.
And that's, to me, where we go wrong. So we need to fix this, and we are trying to fix it, but it's so slow, guys. I just can't even begin to tell you how slow it is. The future of Lloyd's work seems to me to be, you have Blueprint 1, which we all buy into, and then a year and a bit goes by, and then we have Blueprint 2, which sounds like a bit of a rehash of Blueprint 1, with some things taken out without a buy your leave, and some new things added in, also without a buy your leave. And I look at some of my favorite hobby horses, like the tax tool. So insurance premium taxes are a very boring but necessary component of being a global insurance broker. So none of us are tax advisors, and I'm not expecting anybody to be a tax advisor. But we do need to efficiently deal with insurance premium taxes. And the future at Lloyd's has been, and prior to the future at Lloyd's, whatever its previous iteration was, they've been working on this when actually there's a perfectly adequate tool widely used across the broking community and the insurer community through to companies like AIG. We all use a tax tool called TMF. The future at Lloyd's seemed obsessed with building its own. Yeah. And I just don't get it. Why, that's a big piece of work. Why not just buy somebody else's if they've got something that's fit for purpose? And I feel as though we lack that kind of critical decision to cut through it, which disappoints me. And then I look at probably the ultimate Achilles heel of the London market. So I slightly laugh whenever people tell me, and I get this quite a lot, is brokers worry, particularly smaller type brokers. They all worry about disintermediation, even now. They worry about it. They think that there's a conspiracy to remove them from being the broker. But there are very few new brokers coming into the London market, and the reason for that is the experience of dealing with the bureau is nothing short of hideous. It is so complicated. So if you said to me, do I think our New York office could place a piece of business into Lloyd's, I'd say, yeah, they could do that today. And all we'll do is just line them up on PPL, give them how the market reform contract looks as a slip, and they could probably make a pretty decent fist of the whole thing. But if you ever said to them, then try and pay the premium, the whole thing would fall apart. So if you ask for Exchanging's guidance on how to pay premiums, it's 14 pages long. That's just ridiculous. Sorry, that is ridiculous. Yeah. And the other issue I have with it, I've got so many issues with the money and how difficult the money is. So we have more people involved as brokers in accounting and settlement than we have in claims. Explain that to a client, because that doesn't make sense. But it's just because we've made money so complicated. How good is credit control in subscription market insurance?
Mm.
It's laughably bad. I'm sorry, it's just laughably bad.
Yeah.
And I suppose the ultimate sort of thing wherein I feel that what we need to be doing is, instead of tinkering with incremental change, if things are fundamentally just wrong, you should throw it in the bin and start again. So to me, in what other field of commerce does the supplier expect the customer to produce the bill? And I always laugh when people say to me, "What do you mean, John?" I go, "Well, this is the equivalent of, you go to a restaurant, you have a lovely meal, the waiter brings everything, you've got the menu, you order all the things, and then at the end of the meal, you say to the waiter, 'Can I have the bill, please?' And they give you the menu and say, 'And there you go, work it out for yourself. And by the way, don't forget the VAT. And by the way, that's the IPT.' So to answer the exam question, there is no other field of commerce that does that.
Yeah.
And it's clearly wrong and creates a ridiculous amount of rework. Nobody else in the world follows that model. And quite rightly, they don't, i.e. the insurers produce the bill. And if the brokers want to challenge it, or the client wants to challenge it, then that's their prerogative. That's the right way around. So I just feel as though none of these things are extraordinarily original ideas. My friend Chris Croft at Lieber is a big fan of trying to fix the money. I don't feel as though the money's even on the future at Lloyd's agenda. And now I'm 63 years old, I slightly sit and worry, will these things never be fixed during my working lifetime?
Yeah.
And sometimes I think maybe they weren't, just because we don't have the appetite for change.
So I love talking to John. I could talk to John all day. I think we did, didn't we? Really, last Tuesday. But it's great to hear him talking about his experiences, especially in monetization. I've just written down a few things here around bureaucratic, the pace of change being so slow. We always feel like it's slow, but it's not reassuring to hear someone who's deep in the market say that. But at least it just confirms our initial thoughts that the pace of change is very slow. And those examples that he gave around the tax tool and small claims, and at the end the bill, the restaurant bill story, I thought was great and really brings it to life. It's always really interesting talking to John.
I think one of the things I wanted to take out of it, which is so important, is really about John's sort of more radical agenda, which is to say, why do we get so bogged down? Why is there so much inertia? Why do we get bogged down with incremental change? And I think it's because somehow we've all got used to that. And I think we've had this conversation back and forth on Burgess and Bolton throughout the whole time, which is, it's slow, but what about this and what about this? And I sometimes think we end up in a space saying, well, it'll probably be okay if we just keep on pushing each thing and inching it all forward. But John's really refreshing, because he says, no, something more has to happen than that. You have to make those big decisions, and you have to do things. And I think he talks a bit later on, actually, which we'll probably do next week, about some other ideas of some of that sort of more radical change. And I think that's what leadership is, really, is to say, look, get some stuff moved, move that big logjam, get it out of the way, because when that happens, you get this upsurge of enthusiasm because this thing's been moved, and I think that's so important. And I think if we could just identify the things that need to be moved, and John's absolutely right about the money. It's ironic that we work in a market that's centered on money and payments, and we're so poor at it. And yet the moment of truth for claims is the payment to the customer. And we've just heard that whole Hiscox fiasco, because it is a fiasco, is down to just simple basic things that insurance should just be able to do. It's not the complicated technical catastrophes. John's again right. We're good at those. They're brilliant. And I've talked to so many claims teams. They all love that, but we somehow we haven't listened to the customer, and it's the brilliant basics that we're not getting right. And that's so important. I think that's what we've got to focus on. It's frustrating, as we said earlier on with the Hiscox story. It's just, you scratch your head. Why can a large, sophisticated organization not communicate with its customers at a time of crisis? And on top of that, a risk-based company that's supposed to, as its very core, help those businesses.
Yeah.
So it's kind of, and yeah, we need that leadership. And I think there's too many words. I think John referred to it. I think there's too many, kind of rehashes of things that were said before, and then they're said again, and then they worked out in a different way. What we want is kind of more action. Yeah,
absolutely. And you're right, Ben. We will next week continue with the interview, get some clips of some of the ideas that John's got, and we can discuss those next week. So tune in for that. Okay, let's move things on. Ben, have you got anything planned this weekend?
Yeah, going out to the pub, having a pizza tomorrow evening. Yeah, exciting.
Excellent. Yeah, I might do the pizza thing actually tonight. I think it feels like that. What are we doing? Nothing much, I don't think. A friend of mine who lives in Belgium is over here for a week. He's got a new job, so he's in London. So I think he's popping.
Oh, is he allowed to come from Belgium?
Yeah, so this is funny. He's talking about bureaucratic systems. He had to get a test done and then a certificate to say that he could come over. And on the government website, that it says it has to be 3.5 days or 4 days. I can't even remember exactly what it says. So he got it done 4 days ago, and then they got to the border and they turned him away saying, oh no, it's got to be done within 72 hours. So then had to drive back home, get another test, and then drive back to the tunnel and come through. And then he spent a week in isolation and then a week in London, and then he's going back. So yeah.
Oh, dear.
Yes, it's interesting times, but no. So I'm seeing him tomorrow, and then we'll see what happens. Maybe a bit of swimming and cycling. Yeah.
Bank holiday, isn't it? I'd forgotten it was a bank holiday. I'm very excited about that.
Actually, Elaine in the chat just reminded us all it's Bank Holiday Monday. I've got to take all the meetings out that I put in.
Thanks, Elaine.
Yeah, great stuff. Right, thanks everybody. Have a nice weekend, and we'll see you all next week.
See you, everybody. Thanks again to John. It was really good.